Hi, folks, with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about racial integration through mixed race, marriages, and of course, mixed race procreation. What are the chances for that? Is that a widely accepted view around the world? Is it only a view accepted in some quarters? How widespread is it? Do we call somebody from Scotland procreating with somebody from England? Is that a mixed race marriage? Well, not really. They're both white. You can hard to tell them apart. They're both Christians. They both speak the same language. So, that this idea of mixed race sounds, utopian, I guess, if you're studying sociology or Marxist sociology. But in the practical reality of the wider world, it's got not much of a chance of getting up, I think. Let's have a look at that. I never thought much about mixed race sort of marriage. I thought a bit odd if a white person wanted to marry a black person and procreate, but the reality is that people fall in love and they get together and that's fine, nothing wrong with that. There's not much of it goes on, but there hasn't been the mass migration until the last 25 or so years into the West. So the idea of mixed race marriages and procreation wasn't really a thing, and where it did occur, it was rare and occasional, and not necessarily an issue. So let's have a look at it. I first when I first started business traveling, I remember one of the earlier trips I made was to Japan, and I got stuck in a train station. The bustle in some of these Japanese train stations at peak hour is such that you can't find the color code on the floor to be able to find out where the platform is. You go to, I can't read Japanese, so I ended up jumping up on one of the seats, or whatever it was, at the side of the like the causeway, the aisles, and called out, "Look, I'm lost here. Can anyone speak English?" And then this sort of voice came from the crowd, and it was this girl studying English at Tokyo University, and so she very kindly showed me where, and she said, "Look, I want to practice my English, and you're the first actual Westerner I've met." Outside of some lecturer that came for a while, but so do you mind? Yeah, can I? So, okay, yeah, sure. And just as really to thank her for being kind enough to help me out, so we had a chat. So she was her father or grandfather or someone had been Korean. And so as we talked, she can never, so she said, never be accepted into Japanese society as a real sort of person or real Japanese person. So a lot of employment opportunities and things like that are denied to her. And I'm not sure whether she, I said, can people tell by looking at you that your grandfather was Korean? And you have to say if you've got Korean in there in your bloodline. So to me, she looked the same as any other Japanese woman, so I couldn't pick it. But apparently they can. There are very small details. For example, I can pick people from certain areas of the white Western world. I can pick a Slavic sort of shaped face, whereas the Asian people can't. That to them, everybody looks the same. So, and she was explaining this to me that as a result, many career opportunities or employment opportunities are not open to her. So she has to study certain things which will give her good employment opportunities. So she speaks Korean, Japanese, and English so that'll get her a job anywhere. Maybe a lower level job or an interpreter job or something like that, but it'll mean she has many more job opportunities. Japanese companies in Korea, Japanese companies in working in the West, and she can be an interpreter and so on. So she was quite sort of focused on this. She'd also worked part-time or had worked previously in a like a gentleman's nightclub where good Japanese girls don't really work in places like that. So they tend to prefer people from Korea or I don't know, the Philippines or elsewhere around Asia to go and work in those sort of places. And those people are viewed as being somewhat inferior, but she's apparently, there's quite a bit of money in it, and especially for girls who might get taken on as sort of regular concubines for some of the Japanese elites, men that go in there. As she was telling me about, there's a girl from the West who's got red hair and freckles, and she's in such big demand that and is given so many tips and bits and pieces by these wealthy Japanese men that she'll retire a gazillionaire or something. And this half Korean girl or part Korean girl resented a little bit. So, why can't I have red hair and freckles? But this was an interesting thing. I wouldn't have thought it was a big issue that she didn't look any different, that I could tell. And she spoke perfect Japanese, but apparently even that bit of Korean in the bloodline, that's enough to separate her from the pure blood Japanese people. And I thought that was interesting. Why would anybody care if you can do the job? Why not? And if you can meet the standard of work experience and qualifications, then why should that matter? But that's only me with a Western frame of mind. If her behaviour is required in education, then it shouldn't make any difference. But it does in many cultures. Now, also having a chat to more than one conversation I had with Indians there. That one guy was complaining that his daughter is dating, like she's a kid at college or something. She's dating white guys, and he's very concerned. He doesn't mind her dating the white guy, like she's born in Australia. He doesn't mind her dating the white guys as long as she doesn't have intimate physical relations with them, because that would sort of, if you like, bespoil her when it comes to marrying some Indian guy. She has to be sort of pure and vaginal for that. Now, and what if she decides to marry the guy and they have half-caste children? And he was trying to explain that in India, half-caste children are completely unacceptable, that they are shunned by society or polite society. And it's equivalent to them dropping 2 layers in social status if they have, or they're half-caste children. And also the fact that half-caste marriage, it's not really seen as in genetic terms a legitimate marriage, and the children are just simply not really legitimate children. So if you're the number 2 caste in Indian society, by having a mixed race marriage and thus half-caste children, you relegate to the 4th level of society, and so on. So it's very much a social status thing and how you'll be received, but also things like how you'll be treated in courts. For example, the full-blood genetic Indian's got a big advantage over you in a court case. Those sorts of things. So, and he points out people who are still got European or British blood in them from the days of the Raj. He said even today, they may be only a quarter or an eighth, but they're still treated as inferior citizens because only pure bloods are acceptable. So this is, as in genetic pure bloods. So this is something. So he tries to advise his daughter that even in Australia, amongst the Indian diaspora, if you marry a white guy and you procreate, the Indian diaspora here will treat you differently. There'll be places and you'll be shunned. There'll be parties and social gatherings where you won't be invited. There'll be Indian business opportunities that you won't be allowed to participate in, and so on and so forth. So he's saying, why would he want his daughter to suffer like that? And it's his job to steer her away from making those mistakes that once made will be impossible. Yeah, even if she divorces the white guy or the non-Indian guy that she marries, if she was married to a non-Indian guy, no self-respecting Indian will ever touch her as a wife. So she'll be shunned in that respect as well. And so he was talking about this, and he saw it that he was acting well with a degree of parental concern, if not gallantry, in protecting her from making the gross error of engaging in a mixed race relationship, and even the even greater error of procreating with someone outside of the Indian genetic diaspora. Now, it's not as bad in the Chinese thing, and they're possibly they're quite a bit more pragmatic in many ways. But the reality is still the same. That the half-caste Chinese just doesn't have the same opportunities, isn't taken as seriously, and isn't sort of looked after within the diaspora as much as a full-blood Chinese would be. And bear in mind, there are multiple Chinese tribes. The main tribe being the Han Chinese, but there are multiple other Chinese tribes around. They're also treated with varying degrees of respect or deference or lack of it. Just going back to Japan for a while, there was a guy who is half caste. He was, I think his father was an American, and his mother was Japanese. Might have been the other way around, but he speaks very good Japanese. He got a degree in Japanese at university, Japanese literature. So he clearly can speak it well, and he does look half caste. So there's no hiding it in his case. But he met a Japanese girl, went to live in Japan with the intention of staying there and making a life, because the Japanese girl doesn't speak any English. He speaks excellent English and of course Japanese, but he said the only jobs he can get are in international restaurants where he's effectively a maitre d', the guy that books you in and takes you to your table. And so there's a few restaurants around places like Shinjuku that handle a lot of Western tourists, and he says that he can't get a job anywhere in Japan. That's the only places he can get a job, and it's the only place where his half-caste race is not particularly an issue. The fact that he also spoke another, like a European language, possibly Spanish or something like that. But he said, look, I can't get a job anywhere. Those are the only jobs I can get where he's effectively an interpreter, come sort of waiter, come busboy, and the jobs don't pay particularly well. And in order to make anything like decent money, he's got to work really long shifts and work 7 days a week, this sort of thing. And so he was talking about how he thought he'd be accepted in Japan because he speaks excellent Japanese and he's got a Japanese parents. But no, he was amazed at how he was shunned. Now across European lines, it's very different. If a French woman sort of marries a Polish guy, or vice versa, or an English woman marries a French guy, or a Danish guy marries a Romanian girls. Nobody cares. It's not that big a deal. And as long as your behaviour is acceptable and you speak the language decently enough, you'll be okay. You'll get by. And you won't be denied employment simply because you're half caste or you married someone outside of your racial genetic group. So the West is far more accepting of this. Now, maybe it wasn't always that way, but certainly as far back as I can remember. Depends what the difference is. Like if sophisticated white woman marries illiterate black peasant, that's viewed as a mismatch, not because the guy's black, but because he's an illiterate peasant who's got no idea how to behave in polite society. So that's the issue there. Now you can say, well, it is a racial issue. Not really. If it is a racial issue at all, that's that's very much a lower level issue there. If the guy was well behaved, spoke good English, and was well educated and behaved like everyone else did, the resistance, assuming there would be any, would be quite minimal. And that's so I don't see race as an issue. If it's mixed race with white and brown, again, not necessarily a big deal. If you go around Asia, I know some of the elites in Indonesia, for example, they would marry rich white people from the West, but only because they're rich, not because they were white, and because that was perceived as opening commercial doors for well-connected families in Indonesia. The Filipinos didn't seem to worry so much about it. The idea of Filipino natives marrying white people, that's not necessarily seen as a big, people don't necessarily get shunned or anything for that. So that there's a fair bit of that. Koreans, not so much. I've met some Koreans, and the Korean girls in particular, they come to Australia for a vacation just because they want to fuck a Western guy, and they're not here looking for husbands or particularly looking at vacations or cultural experiences. A lot of the younger Korean girls, they've got this thing about they have to fuck a Western guy. By the way, the Japanese, half Korean Japanese girl that I was talking to, she had this thing too. I said, was anything missing from your education, like as in she's studying English? And she was, oh yeah, the girls all doing the course, they all want to fuck a Western guy. That complements and rounds out their education. I don't know why that should be such a big deal, but it seemed to be important to her. And the girls doing the class, oh well, do boys want to fuck Western? Boys doing the English class, do they want to fuck Western girls? No, I don't think so. It's more a girl thing. Oh, there you go. So if you go around different parts of Asia, in Hong Kong, even though Hong Kong's been a British colony since, what was it, the 1850s or something, 1840s, there are some, but there's still very few people who are, there seemed to be an unusually low level of mixed race relationships in Hong Kong. I was quite surprised. And they frown upon it. Don't mind dating white guys, some as in like the Hong Kong Chinese, dating the white guys or dating the white girls. Yeah, okay, it's tolerated, but marrying them and procreating is looked down upon with most of them. And again, that's having been a British colony for 150 years or whatever it was. So it goes to show there's still high resistance. If you look at the Indians, a lot of Indians went to Fiji in the 1850s to work on sugar plantations, that sort of stuff, and their integration rate, even after again 150 years or so, 170 years, their integration rate is not even 1%. So after 170 years, I mean, fuck. So this goes to show that integrating people or mixed race relationships, there's a lot of resistance from pretty much all the races of the world, with the exception of white people. Yet the advertising, the propaganda, the pushing, and the globalist propaganda clearly asserts that if integration, as in racial integration and interracial marriages and procreation, if it's not taking place, it must be because of evil fascist Nazi white people. When in fact that's not the case. It's quite the opposite. It's the Indians, the Chinese, and the Japanese. Well, Japanese aren't big migrant groups, but it's these other groups. They're the ones that don't want to integrate and are adamant about genetic purity. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.